Hi, boys and girls. This is your read aloud. I'm going to try a little something different. We're going to listen to the YouTube read aloud of How Chipmunk Got His Stripes, and I'm going to be pausing it and talking and asking you some questions and for you to think about your story. This week's comprehension focus is on understanding characters. In books, we have to draw conclusions about our characters based on the way they act, the things that they say, just like you draw conclusions every week about people in your real life. If somebody says please and thank you and is always very kind, you might say that person is very polite. They don't walk around saying I'm polite, but the way they behave and the way they act lets you know that they're polite. So we're going to listen to our story, How Chipmunks Got His Stripes, and we're going to see if we can figure out about our characters based upon the things that they say and based upon the things that they do. And we'll walk through that together. I'm going to share my screen. And here we go.
Spruce Shack. Pictures by Jose Oruga.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. Now, the word that's highlighted, brag, instantly gives me more of a negative feeling because when you think of brag, that's something that you really shouldn't do about yourself, talking about how great you are and how wonderful you are. And so already I'm not feeling real good about Bear. I'm thinking that he sounds like he's got a big head. And what do I mean by that? That word there, that phrase, a big head. Does that mean he's walking around and his head looks bigger than his body? No, that's a figure of speech. That's an idiom. It just means that he thinks too much of himself. And that's already, I can tell that because they said he likes to brag, and I'm basing that on the words that he's saying about himself. So I'm already thinking if he thinks that he can make the sun come up, not thinking he is one of the most clever or smart animals to think that he can actually make the sun not come up. And I'm wondering about this little squirrel, if she's maybe trying to trick him or what's her deal. We have to find out, read more, a little bit more about squirrel, but that's my first question. he's thinking that he's the one that did that, again, I'm thinking, you might not be the smart animal. Maybe squirrel. Because look, she's asking, well, will it come up tomorrow? Maybe she's trying to figure out, does he really know this? So there's bear telling the sun to go down when it normally does go down. Okay, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I think I'm right here. I think squirrel knew all along that bear didn't understand how the sun worked, and she's tricking him. So while he's saying it's not going to come up, she's saying the sun's going to rise, because what does squirrel know? Squirrel knows that the sun's always going to rise no matter what someone says. So there they are, facing which way the sun's going to come up. So now they're gathering a crowd, and all the animals are coming to see who's going to be right, and who do we know is going to be right. Think about how words you would use right now to describe bear. And think about something you would use to just word that you might use to describe the chipmunk or the squirrel. Sorry. Do you Do you think Squirrel is using good sense right now? He's so happy that he was right, and I think he knew all along he was going to be right. But what is not smart about teasing someone like Bear? Think about the size of Squirrel and think about the size of Bear. You think maybe he should have listened to his grandmother? You can see that Bear's not liking to be teased. Now, what's that tell you about Bear? What kind of character is he? Is he a good sport or is he a bully? I think he's a bully. Okay, my brain's thinking this little squirrel is tricky. That little squirrel's being very clever because when he's saying, I want you to raise your paw up just a little bit, and I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm thinking he's not going to say, I'm sorry. He's going to take off running to save his life. And I'm also thinking Bear didn't seem like he was real smart by thinking he could actually keep the sun from rising. So I'm thinking Bear's actually going to lift that paw up and Squirrel's going to get loose. And there's little brown squirrel running. Now remember, this is about a chipmunk, how Chipmunk got his stripes. So you should be thinking, I wonder what a squirrel has to do with a chipmunk. Now, have you ever seen a chipmunk and what they look like? Don't they remind you of a squirrel? And think about the stripes on a squirrel. Maybe they look like a bear scratched a squirrel. Do you think maybe those scratches on his back are going to leave scars? So, boys and girls, is that really how Chipmunk got his stripes? It's just a nice way of saying it. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that story. This is just a folk tale that explains how something came to be. It explains how Chipmunk came to get his stripes, and it also shares why chipmunks get up so early. They're saying that that chirping is him saying the sun came up, the sun came up, the sun came up, and that the reason bears don't get up till later is because they don't want to hear Chipmunk rubbing it in. But I think everybody learned a lesson in that story. And also, I want you to think about words that you might use to describe bear and words you might use to describe chipmunk based on how they acted. And that's what you should do anytime you read any story. You should be thinking about your characters and what the author's telling you about their characters on the way by the way they act and the things that they say. Happy reading.